Warning. Some events in this quest deal with hardcore choices and things that sensitive folks don't like level drain. Ooh.
Welcome, minions, to the first of our spin-off sessions from the Night Below campaign. Full disclosure, this session was actually played between episodes 23 and 24 of the Night Below saga, but as it's apart from Haranshire and doesn't involve events of that story thread, I've decided to remove it from the Night Below series from a presentational standpoint. Rest assured, it does involve some characters you've been following from Night Below, having been drawn into another mission. This session was meant to be a one-off for characters who departed Haranshire to level up or rest. But, as is normal with an organic open-world campaign, it turned out to be but the beginning of a whole new quest. More on that in the deliberation after the recap. So, we pick up in Arabel, at the height of the Time of Troubles, where Valletta, the cleric of Tymora, has assembled his friends to ask for their aid. Lady Tymora herself has arrived in Arabel and is protecting the city, which is threatened from outside forces. Without further ado, roll the opener, and let's have at it. As is our fashion, the action is recreated using the Order of the Stick Monster for Every Season cutout minis. The players: Grant as Rotkill, neutral good, dwarven fighter, level 7. Claude as Bink, neutral good, half-elf, fighter magic user thief, level 445. Sean as Octavius, chaotic good ranger, level 5. Les as Bovel, neutral good human magic user, level 4. Dave as Daryl, lawful good human paladin of Lathander, level 4. And guest player Ingrid as Chance, chaotic good human cleric of Tymora, level 5. World event alert. As the Time of Troubles raged on, the loss of Mystra meant magic became unstable, so the DM introduced a wrinkle for arcane spells. Any time an arcane spell is cast, the caster had to make a check against their intellect at 2d6 plus 1d6 per spell level. A result higher than the mage's intellect meant a wild surge from a predetermined chart. It has been several months since these PCs left Haranshire, and they have been training and waiting as Lady Tymora herself has come to Arabel during this time of troubles, and Valletta says that she will have a mission for them. Arabel has been thriving with the presence of Lady Luck, but her presence has also attracted other, bigger, more existential threats that she is ready to repel with the aid of her priests and followers. To this end, Lady Tymora has restored the fallen ranger Octavius with a powerful resurrection. The price is his fealty to her order. Now a follower of Lady Luck, Octavius has been baptized into the faith and is ready to do battle in her name and defend the city. Bovel and Bink, both magic users, have noticed something amiss with magic. Wild surges, no doubt caused by some destabilizing factor due to the Time of Troubles, have plagued many arcane spellcasters, including themselves. Every time they cast, they have noted an extra level of concentration is required to achieve the effect they want. Failure means a surge of energy and a random result other than what they intended. The higher the spell level, the harder it is to maintain the spell's cohesion. Summoned to the Temple of Tymora, known as the House of the Lady, the team meets with 3 others, a dwarf named Khal Coalfist, a gnome named Bondi Redcap, and another cleric of Tymora called Chance. Soon enough, they are joined by Valletta, who explains that the time has come and Tymora is ready. A young girl, barely in her teens, is peering into the room from a corner watching. Octavius beckons her in, but Valletta immediately drops to kneel, calling her my lady. The others realize this is Tymora's avatar and follow suit. She has them stand, and gives them the info they've been waiting for. A threat to Arabel is coming from 4 fronts, corresponding to air, earth, fire, and water. She has assembled many warriors capable of repelling these threats according to their skills, and in each case a history with the looming threat. Lady Tymora tells the heroes that their task is to go into the earth and subdue an artifact called the Founding Stone. Valletta and Rotkill have a history with this ancient and powerful artifact. In their early days as adventurers, they, along with their fellows, descended into an ancient underground city, where a long-buried great evil had woken up and started to take control of a race of underground insect men called Chitines. The evil was a sentient artifact called the Founding Stone. This whole thing was a part of the module The Shattered Circle, played years before the Night Below campaign had started. As the adventurers made their way deeper into the Lost City, they met with much resistance, and both Valletta and Rotkill were gravely injured, and consequently forced to return to the surface, while their comrades delved back into the lair to find and destroy the Founding Stone. They never returned, leaving Valletta and Rotkill as the only known survivors of that expedition. Since its awakening, certain members of the population can feel its presence in the form of various sensations, ranging from a nagging feeling that there's someone watching, or persistent headaches, bad dreams, etc. Lady Tesseril of Evening Star had the passage blocked when the influence of the Founding Stone was expanding beyond the subterranean complex and affecting the surface world. Eventually, the influence faded, but the passage remained sealed. Both Daryl and Bavel had experienced this very sensation during their time in Evening Star, and have recently felt it again in Arabel. Lady Tymora confirms that this sensation is the influence of the Founding Stone, meaning that its army of minions has brought it here, likely via passages in the upper levels of the Underdark. The Lady of Luck informs the group that they will be able to access a series of underground tunnels via a farmstead just outside of Arabel. She gives them information and directions, and tells them that the Kytines have tunneled up and killed the farmers. That is their point of ingress. They need to follow the Kytine tunnels to an ancient subterranean temple to one of the Elder Gods, which is where the Founding Stone is currently situated. To beat the stone, they must cover it completely in earth. She warns that its magic is powerful and merely touching it will bend its victim to its will. The stone cannot be destroyed, but it can be subdued. Once it has been subdued, and the other dangers facing Arabel are past, the lady herself can come and safely remove it from this plane of existence forever. With that, she bids them well and departs, demonstrating her enjoyment of her youthful mortal form by cartwheeling out of the room like an exuberant child. Before departing, Valletta tells his friends that a plan has changed, and he must accompany his lady on one of her other tasks. He was originally to have joined them, but she changed her mind, and he does not question why. He gives Chance a token with the sigil of Tymora. It has a spell of continual light cast upon it. He'd made several of them to give to his comrades, so they are already equipped with one, but it wouldn't hurt for her to have one as well. He bids his friends farewell, and hopes to see them when the crisis is past. With their instructions given, the team immediately departs for the farm. As it's immediately outside of the city, they don't have far to travel. Bink casts a spell of invisibility, but not before the DM has him make a check to see if he's able to control the Wild Surge. A roll of 2d6 plus 1d6 per spell level against the caster's intellect. As we stated earlier, a roll over means there's a Wild Surge. Bink rolls the dice, and the result is less than his 14 intellect, so he turns invisible and scouts ahead to the barn, climbing up to the hayloft. After spying what clearly must be these Kytines in the barn, seemingly standing sentry at a large hay bale, Bink immediately suspects the hay bale is concealing a tunnel down. He returns to report. Worried about Kytine sentries fleeing and sounding an alarm, they make a plan of swift attack. Bink will return, cast a stinking cloud spell from a scroll that he possesses to incapacitate the two guarding the hay bale he suspects is the passage to the underground, and then the rest will burst into the barn to finish them off. Bink stealthily climbs into position, cancels his invisibility so he can read the scroll and cast the cloud before the Kytines can react. Once again, a roll against the Wild Surge is made, but Bink succeeds and the stinking cloud erupts. One of them makes it save, while the other fails. The rest of the team rush to the barn to attack, but a force of previously unseen Kytines hidden beneath the hay of other stalls emerge and fight. Kytines are insectoid creatures with an ability to generate webbing as well as secrete a resin from their bodies that forms and hardens their webbing into weapons. These resin weapons are deadly and efficient. Rotkill has faced them before, but notes that these Kytines are tougher than the ones he fought years ago. The combat is nonetheless fairly quick, but the Kytines get some solid hits in before being defeated. The team is able to prevent any from escaping thanks to their swift action, and the stinking cloud blocking their means of exit. Octavius takes some heavy wounds, so Daryl uses his ability to lay on hands for the day to heal him. Moving the hay bale, they find the expected tunneled passage down. Bondi, Redcap, and Bink climb down to scout. They follow a narrow corridor to an open cavern descending deep into the earth. They spot no Kytine sentries below, though consider that some may be hidden as before. They return to report. With a rope and grapple, they make the way down one by one, then move toward the large cavern. It doesn't take a dwarf or gnome to see that the cavern has a clear downward slope into the depths of the earth. They form up and proceed. After traveling this subterranean passage for a short while, the group arrives at a massive, sprawling cavern, wherein they see an impressive sight. A massive hive suspended from the walls of the cavern by strands of thick, powerful webbing. From their vantage, they see hundreds of Kytines swarming about on and within the hive, which gives off a strange, phosphorescent glow. Patrols of insectoids on the ground will prove a problem if the team doesn't want to alert the whole hive. This is a battle they can't win. Bink hides in a dark area watching the patrols, noting patterns, while the others deliberate on their next course of action. At first, they think the founding stone may be in the hive, but soon recall that Tymora herself said it would be secured in an eldritch temple. They must find a way to get past the hive, but without drawing attention. Bondi scouts forward, and when he returns he notes that he found 3 ways forward. One passage to the left, one large one straight ahead, walled up with webbing, and a passage past the hive to the right. The passage to the left and the one past the hive and to the right have shriekers placed in the tunnel, meaning the group can't get past without noise being made. The group asks if Chance has a silence spell memorized, but alas, she didn't pray for one today. They discuss their options, but which way to go puzzles them. Based on information they have, there are no indicators of which way will take them to their destination. Bovel has a web spell of his own, which they feel would be good to block whatever passage they take after they've gone through, but they need to figure out which one. After eliminating the large passage as it's blocked off by the chitin webbing, they consider the 2 remaining options. Bink suggests that they flip a coin and rely on luck, as gambling is Lady Tymora's purview, so honoring the lady with such an act of faith seems appropriate. But the others are not as keen on this. The strange sensation tied to the founding stone has been ever present and increasing by subtle degrees, but only Bovel and Daryl are sensitive to it, the reason still being a mystery to everyone. Bovel has an idea, then moves forward to see if the feeling becomes stronger. He clears his mind so as to focus on the sensation, and the DM calls for a roll against his intellect. The dice are with him, and sure enough he notices that it does indeed get stronger, though it's barely perceptible. He risks sneaking around after marking the movements of the patrols. As he moves closer to the exit farthest on the right, he notes the sensation does indeed get stronger. This clinches it, and they decide to make for that passage come what may. But in a smart strategy, they plan to use the line of sight to shoot missiles at the shriekers in the other passage to draw chitin attention in that direction while they move the other way. However, given the range and the thin passage, threading that needle proves to be too difficult to hit the shriekers, but the clatter of the missiles impacting against the rocks does draw the patrol to investigate. They use the distraction to move quickly, Bovel casting his web spell after rolling the check for a wild surge against his 18 intellect, making the check easily. After webbing up the corridor behind them, the team runs past the shriekers as they make their unnatural howl. With the alert sounded, they run fast, though they are unsure of how long they have before the chitins catch up. They sprint forward, and it isn't long before they arrive at the temple Lady Tymora had described. Before the natural ground entirely becomes wrought stone, the group uses the opportunity to fill several sacks with dirt, as per Tymora's instructions on subduing the stone. Before them are 2 gigantic stone doors, 20 feet wide, 40 feet tall. An altar with an offering bowl sits before massive stone steps leading up to the doors. They ignore the bowl and rush the doors, but find that they are impossible to open. There are no handles and no locks. 3 hooded figures emerge from behind them at a distance, striding forward but staying back and watching. Bondi uses the thief's ability to read languages to decipher some ancient text on the altar, referencing a being called something the Unspoken. The part with its name has been chiseled off. Seeing dried brown staining, they ascertain that a sacrifice of blood is needed. Bovel and Chance prick their thumbs, but this results in only a slight tremble on the doors. They reason that a sacrifice must be more significant, so Octavius volunteers and slices his palm. Some force takes hold and draws blood from him. A d6 is rolled by the DM, scoring a 1. Octavius permanently loses 1 hit point, but the doors open. They enter. Before them are 2 passages, each an archway with more text. Bink and Bondi attempt to decipher them. The gnome succeeds on one side, indicating a sacrifice of life and vitality is necessary to proceed left. They choose the passage on the right, and as the first person passes the chosen arch, a wall appears on the other, instantly sealing it. And they are now committed. The corridor leads the team to a second pair of arches covered in the same text. Though this time, efforts to decipher the text fail. After discussing which option to take, Bink suggests rule of right and proceeds through the arch. As he passes through, the alternate arch is sealed shut as before, but a crackle of black energy drains a level of life force from him. With no way but forward, the others prepare for the same fate, but are able to pass through without harm. It's ascertained that only the one sacrifice is needed. Once again they arrive at a familiar pair of arches with strange text. While they are again unable to determine the text, it seems that one of the arches is plain stonework, while the other is ornate with gilded designs. This time, Chance chooses to offer up whatever sacrifice is needed and strides through the first plain arch. The other closes as before, but nothing happens otherwise. The chosen passage leads to a 4th set of arches. Bink's roll to decipher the text succeeds, and he says that it reads, only the literate will know where to end. The group discusses the meaning of this, but can't figure out the puzzle. Ultimately, knowing they must proceed regardless, Rotkill volunteers to test and strides through the left arch. Nothing happens, and the group makes it safely through. Before them is a massive space, which, judging by the broken stone pews and altar, was once a hall of worship. Beyond that is another set of monolithic stone doors. The group attempts to push them open, but to no avail. Examining the altar, they find it's nothing but one big slab, stained brown as with the offering bowl at the temple entry. Except this altar has no offering bowl. The dried bloodstains cover the surface of the altar itself. Chance cuts her hand to give blood as before, but no effect. Reading the runes proves a fruitless effort, the only familiar symbol being that of the repeated word, unspoken. Realizing how much staining there is in the slab, the group comes to suspect that they will need to sacrifice a life on the altar to open the doors. Daryl does not like this at all, and attempts again to push the doors open, but they will not budge. Wondering how much time they have before the army of Chitines catches up, they discuss the options, which are few. They decide, in the end, that someone must die. This being a team of goody-goods, none are willing to volunteer another. The DM rolls morale for the NPCs, then Cal Colfist offers his own life to give the others a fighting chance, whereas Bondi is too timid to offer himself up. Among the PCs, Bavel declares that in battle his skills are of the least useful and offers himself. Bink and Octavius also offer themselves, Octavius stating that his life was already taken once and by rights he should be dead. It is decided that those willing to offer themselves up to die will draw lots. Bavel is convinced not to participate in the lottery as his magic might be necessary. Daryl, the paladin, states that he will not let others make a sacrifice when he is unwilling, so he joins the lottery in Bavel's stead. Cal, Bink, Octavius, and Daryl each draw lots. The DM rolls a d4 to see who gets the short lot. A 2 is rolled, meaning Bink is the one to offer his life in hopes of opening the door to the inner temple. He gives the spellbook to Bavel and says his goodbyes to his allies. After Bink lays down on the altar, Rotkill steps forward to do the task. Bink asks for a clean death, which the mighty Rotkill performs. Bink's body bleeds onto the altar, and after a moment, the massive doors swing open. Claude takes control of the gnome Bondi for the remainder of the session. The group proceeds forward. In the center of a large chamber, the walls of which are far beyond the radius of even their continual light spells, sitting on a dais is a large stone block the size of a spellbook. Upright with an effigy of a skull clenching the infinity symbol in its teeth. Bavel and Daryl immediately instinctively recognize it as the source of the sensation they have been feeling. Bowed before it are two figures, a hybrid Chitine spider and a human. The human rises to face the interlopers, and Rotkill immediately recognizes this figure. His friend, the monk Botlak, one of his comrades that was presumed dead from the original adventure to find and subdue the Founding Stone. This, of course, was Less's previous character, who had been rendered in critical condition but not killed outright during their last stand that killed the rest of the team. Bodlak speaks in friendly tones, genuinely glad to see his old friend. He encourages Rotkill and the others to join with the Founding Stone, and that what he has seen and learned from the Founding Stone is illuminating. The group is naturally having none of it. As they entered, the team had hatched a quick and efficient plan. So without wasting more words, Bavel uses a scroll with the spell Fly onto Chance, who is carrying all of the massive bags of dirt they collected before entering the temple. Her task is to fly up and bury the stone while the others distract any protectors. Bavel's 5d6 check for a wild surge against his 18 intellect succeeds, and Chance is ready to fly. Initiative is diced, and combat begins. Bondi casts Mirror Image. Bodlak the monk is enhanced with supernatural abilities granted by the Founding Stone and dashes into combat at blinding speed, targeting Octavius. A brutal series of open-hand blows successfully stuns the ranger, but fortunately the monk's chance at an instant kill from such a strike does not succeed. Chance lifts off the ground and flies over the melee to the stone, but the Chitine spider is guarding it. Another figure is casting magic from out of the shadows. Chance is suddenly surrounded in darkness, blinded. This is short-lived, however, as she has the token of Tymora, bearing a spell of continual light that was gifted to her by Valletta. She uses it to dispel the darkness. Blows are exchanged, and Bodlak is hurt, but the team notices that he is regenerating. He withdraws into the darkness to heal. More magic comes from a mysterious source outside of the aura of light from the Founding Stone. A dispel magic cast on Chance, but the rolls fail to dispel the fly or the continual light magic. Daryl sticks close to the stunned Octavius in case Bodlak emerges to attempt to finish the job, while Kyle sticks close to Bavel to protect the magic user. Bondi casts a phantasmal force, hoping to create a horde of gnomes to distract the spider. But as a group of creatures is beyond the scope of the spell, the DM rules that this will require a roll against his intellect to see if he can make the illusion believable. The gnome fails his roll, resulting in a strange mash of grotesque gnomish creatures. Bovel casts a lightning bolt from his ring of spell storing, lighting up the spider with a powerful hit, but also hitting Bondi's failed attempt at a gnomish army, thus dispelling it. Chance starts dumping the dirt on the stone from her sacks, but the chitin spider simply wipes it away. In the next round, Rotkill charges the chitin spider to occupy it, while Chance does her job covering the stone. 3 drow warriors appear, which are actually a single warrior with a mirror image spell. It rushes in and strikes Rotkill with a hefty blow, also keeping him distracted and off the spider. Bovel casts a magic missile from the ring of spell storing, dealing some more damage to the spider. Bondi advances, getting close enough to cast color spray on the spider, who fails the save and is stunned for 7 segments. Now fully regenerated, Bodlak emerges from the dark and advances into combat with Bovel and Kal. Daryl is loath to leave Octavius alone, but the greater task is more important, so he charges the spider, dealing a blow. Bondi rushes forward, risking engagement, but is too close to the drow, who is able to get in some attacks against him as he passes. The strikes breach the mirror image and kill the gnome dead. Rotkill attempts the same, choosing to take whatever hit the drow can deliver in favor of taking the spider out. He takes a nasty hit from the drow, but completes his own charge, dealing a heavy blow to the spider, enough to take it to negative hit points. But it begins to regenerate. With the spider down, Daryl turns his attention to helping Chance. The stone is upright, which makes burying it difficult, so he knocks it over with his shield, making sure not to touch it directly, and they start the process of using the dirt to bury it. Bodlak's enhanced unarmed strikes brutally beat Bovel to death, despite attempts by Kal to aid. How often do you see that, minions? A player's former character kills his current character. Surrounded by enemies now, the drow casts a fireball and centers it at his own feet to blast all enemies around him while protected by his own drowish magic resistance. But those wild surge rolls finally yield fruit, and the drow fails to contain the energies of a wild surge. The fireball turns into a polymorph, randomly centered on Chance. Chance's save succeeds, and thus the wild magic surge potentially saves the group, as the fireball would have finished them all off. Octavius recovers from the stun and rushes the drow, while Rotkill wheels around and with his attacks cut through the defenses of the drow's mirror image. The drow falls to the blows from both of these warriors. Turning his attention to the downed chitin spider, Rotkill relentlessly hacks at it to prevent it from regenerating, while Daryl and Chance scoop up all of the dirt from the sacks and finally succeed in burying the founding stone with the precious earth, forcing it back into a dormant state, subduing it, and ending its influence. The spider immediately starts convulsing as the regenerative properties it was blessed with are stemmed, and it dies. Likewise, the drow, who hasn't yet regenerated, now reverts to normal and dies from his grievous injuries. Bodlak falls to his knees in pain as the controlling presence of the founding stone is removed and passes out, but he isn't killed, as he had already regenerated back to full health. The group binds Bodlak up and takes a well-earned breather. The battle is over. Chance prays to Tymora, as through the eyes of her clerics she can penetrate the veil of the Underdark. She informs the goddess that they have succeeded, and the founding stone is once again dormant. With an army of chitins between them and the exit, they decide that they will stay in this temple whilst praying to Tymora for deliverance. They have enough food with them for a week. Fortune favors them, and the chitins never show up. Those 3 strange hooded figures do not present themselves either. After almost a week, Lady Tymora arrives at the head of a large host of warriors and clerics, along with Valletta, and the founding stone properly stored away and carried off by Tymora's faithful. The mission is finally over, and they return to Arabel. Bodlak awakes from his nightmare, though retains no memory of his time as a thrall of the founding stone. Les reclaims the character sheet of his former character and adds him to his folder. With the favor of the goddess, the fallen are resurrected, though, as established, she cannot bring the dead back who are not of her faith, unless they are unclaimed. Only some gods have that power. She is unable to resurrect Bondi the gnome for this reason, but like Octavius, Bovel and Bink convert to the faith and are baptized as Tymorites. Though of proud dwarven ancestry, Rotkill also chooses to convert to the faith of Tymora, given recent events. In a ceremony to those who came to the defense of Arabel at Tymora's call, Lady Tymora offers gifts to the champions who fought to defeat the threats to Arabel. Bink is awarded a special librum of magic, to be used when he reaches the limits of his understanding of the arcane arts. Rotkill is awarded a great weapon of his people, a dwarven thrower. Bovel is awarded an enchanted white robe of the Archmagi, to keep him safe through his upcoming challenges. Octavius is awarded the armor of the Rangers, a heavily enchanted suit of studded leather with no bulk and hard as banded mail. For Daryl, she laments that she could not give him his gift directly, but instead offers a map with the location of a lost artifact of his order, a Holy Avenger, to aid in the coming battle in Haranshire. She warns, however, that it is guarded and the path is extremely dangerous. She also sorrowfully tells him that she mourns for Lathander as he has passed from her sight. She warns the group that great darkness looms in Haranshire, but even from her celestial throne, her sight cannot penetrate the realms of Loth, save for through the eyes of her servants, who are quite few in that realm. The plots of Haranshire come from the Underdark, and an ancient evil is behind it, a memory that predates even many of the gods. Their coming battles will make what they just endured seem like a child's game of play. With XP awarded, the session concludes. Well, minions, that was quite the session. It certainly diverged from this DM's usual MO, and it technically wasn't part of the Night Below campaign, though it did feature regular characters from that campaign. Normally, our Review Cap series focuses on published modules, but this one diverges from that mandate, as the whole scenario was designed by the DM, albeit based on ongoing campaign developments stemming from other published material. The overall AD&D campaign as of this video is going on 12 years old, so obviously there's a lot of rich backstory that took place before the Night Below scenario was started. Relevant to this group in today's session is the module Shattered Circle. The DM ran this adventure for the group many years ago, and as was narrated here, Valletta and Rotkill, then only first level, were the only survivors. Bodlock survived by being knocked into critical condition, that being negative hit points, but stabilized right before the group met their fate against the chitin spider. They did almost have it then, too. But alas, when the spider was monologuing, one of the players at the time got impatient with all the talkie-talkie and attacked before the chitin spider could drop the key clue as to how to subdue the Founding Stone. With its infinite regeneration, the team eventually succumbed. Bodlock was later found and exposed to the Founding Stone, and thus his presence here. When the DM decided that he would play out the Time of Troubles, it was decided that at least one related mission should happen in that otherwise brief span of time. With Lady Tymora canonically arriving in Arabel and a PC running a Cleric of Tymora, the rest just fell into place. Previous failure to subdue the Founding Stone meant a lingering presence that affected the region, as well as Valletta and Rotkill's role in that scenario meant a final battle with the Founding Stone was a natural fit. It was tied in with the idea that Lady Tymora protected Arabel from various threats, so the attack on 4 fronts was concocted with the Earth front being the Founding Stone, and voila, special side quest adventure. One unfortunate turn of events was the absence of Ron, who plays Valletta, the Cleric of Tymora. This whole scenario was basically concocted around his character. Alas, and due to a last-minute emergency, Ron was unable to attend his own party. Easy enough to remove Valletta for other duties, as you saw, but it would have been cool to have the whole gang. Let that be a lesson, minions. Don't craft adventures, and especially not campaigns, around specific individuals. The layout of the scenario was basically the framework of your typical 5-room dungeon. An entry guardian, the chitin sentries at the farm, a puzzle to solve, or RP challenge, the chitin hive, a trick or setback, the series of sacrifices to enter the temple, a final battle, the Founding Stone and its guardians, and a reward, the resurrections and gifts of Tymora. Also of note, on today's episode of How to Beat Yourself Up as a DM, our beleaguered DM here realized after the fact that he made a wee bit of a boo-boo when the wild magic surge happened as the drow cast its fireball. For some reason, in the moment when the DM rolled the result of the wild surge, he turned up caster polymorphs randomly, but instead read it as casts polymorph randomly. Take your time when DMing, minions, and get things right. Still, as it was the result of a wild magic surge, it's not a big deal, as crazy results are the point. Letter of the law when dealing with chaos is sort of a contradiction, don't you think? Either way, the wild surge saved the group from total destruction in this case. Probably the most pivotal part of the fight, when you think about it. Had that fireball gone off, death was very likely for Rotkill and Octavius, and almost certain for the others in the blast radius. Very close indeed. The linear progression of the 5-room dungeon isn't generally this DM's usual style, but it's necessary once in a while for certain occasions. This particular scenario also serves as a setup for a looming side quest away from the events of the main Night Below campaign, as Daryl the Paladin has declared that he wants to lead a force to find and reclaim the Holy Avenger. The rest of the group has yet to decide on which characters they want to take on the mission. Daryl will obviously lead this mission, while Aneshk the Paladin has been assigned to Haranshire by the Order, so he cannot just up and leave. As for everyone else's choices, that's anyone's guess. It will be interesting to see what Suicide Squad is assembled from their stable of characters for this daunting task. And make no mistake, the DM isn't playing softball in this one. Finding a Holy Avenger has to be earned, minions, and they will be made to earn it. And so, minions, this exciting little side quest comes to a conclusion. Book 1 of the Night Below campaign is complete, and the players are prepping to delve into the Underdark on that one. But first, the quest for the Holy Avenger, which could be anywhere between 8 and 10 sessions. Hard to say, but that's not an unreasonable estimate. The exact dungeon in question will be revealed soon, but for now, no spoilers. Just know that it's a classic. And with that, minions, I bid you adieu.